So, dear participants, I really hope you could have some stretching, maybe have some refreshments as well. Now it is time to continue. The first speech of this part today is given by Valeryi Nagornyi, CEO of Vladivostok Sea Terminal LLC. So, Valery, please, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon for everybody. Just a moment. Is it okay? Do you see it?
Yes, it is all good.
Okay. Good afternoon, dear organizers, dear participants of the seminar. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today and share some ideas how we can encourage cruise tourism in the region of Northwest Pacific.
Да только включила. Ну что, Леночка, как там надо это?
Sorry. My topic today is the current state and prospects for development of cruise tourism in Pacific Russia from the point of view of cruise industry participants. My presentation will include 5 parts. They are on the slide. And let's start from brief outlook of what we had before 2020 here and what we have today considering well-known circumstances. So in 2019, Vladivostok, Sakhalin and Kamchatka had about 60,000 cruise passengers per year in total. Regarding Vladivostok, we had managed to increase our cruise traffic more than 5 times for 5 years. In 2015, we had about 5,000 cruise passengers, and in 2019, we had almost 35,000 cruise passengers per year. This is mostly thanks to our active marketing work with international cruise operators. Now we have direct connections with all cruise operators which are acting in our region. Most of cruise ships we accommodated in previous years were mid and mega-sized cruise ships. And in 2019, we accommodated the call of the biggest cruise ship that had ever called in Russian ports. The main source markets for cruises that visited Vladivostok were South Korea, Japan and China, and also international audience that took fly cruises from the ports of Japan. For Sakhalin, as I know, there were 2 main segments: cruises targeted Japanese market and also reposition cruises between Alaska and Asia and vice versa. Itineraries that include Kamchatka were mainly in the frame of reposition cruises and also expedition segment. In 2020, this story was put on hold because of well-known obstacles. Order of the government of Russian Federation number 635 of March 16 last year put restrictions on the entry of foreign citizens into the Russian Federation through also sea checkpoints. And it is enforced to the present. It has already led to the loss of 2 cruise seasons, speaking about international cruise segment that gave the most of cruise traffic in our region. Nevertheless, some cruise activity is remaining in the region. There is one expedition class ship, basically research vessel, that regularly makes cruises in the Russian Far East, named Professor Khromov, up to 50 passengers. In 2020, the Lebanon company made one cruise from another to Korsakov with Russian passengers only. In the whole, considering restrictions for international travel, One of the main tasks today for us is to develop Russia's domestic market and to attract more Russian tourists for cruises in the region. For your reference, in 2019, by the data of Cruise Lines International Association, Russian source market reached 100,000 passengers per year, with double-digit year-per-year growth. Here I want to mention that there was huge historical experience of cruising in Russian Far East waters during 1960s, 1990s. In that time, there was strong Soviet and Russian cruise industry in Far East, with itineraries between regions of Russian Far East and even toward Japan and South Korea. There was significant passenger fleet of up to 15 ships during that years. Now, active work is underway to improve and promote Vladivostok opportunities as a hub for sending tourists from all over Russia along the routes of the Russian Far East, and after lifting bans along the routes, including Korea, Japan, and China. Now let me move to the second point of my presentation, infrastructure development plans, where I will briefly review current state of infrastructure to accommodate cruise ships in Pacific Russia regions and directions of its development. Mainly, I will talk about mid and big size vessel needs. So regarding Vladivostok, I'd like to highlight that after the completion of dredging works in 2019, our terminal became able to accommodate Quantum-class ships, so Spectrum of the Seas and Quantum of the Seas became the largest cruise ships calling at Russian seaports ever. It was in 2019. On the slide, you can also review another main characteristics of our terminal. Talking about Kamchatka, it is important that since 2018, big-size cruise ships have the opportunity to be berthed alongside the pier. Before that time, cruise passengers of such type of the ships were disembarked and embarked by tender boats after the ship came at anchoring position in the bay. Here I'd like to mention that there is a project of construction purpose-built passenger terminal in Viluchinskaya Bay in the frame of 3 Volcano Park, a project to accommodate all types of modern cruise ships. Despite the fact that we are in close contact with the team of this project, I will not talk about it in details. According to the agenda of the seminar, the representative of this project, Mr. Sergey Khvorostyanyy, is together with us, so let's attentively listen to his presentation later. And the most important point which should be developed in case of port infrastructure in Pacific Russia for ships is Sakhalin. Now mid and big size ships can only have anchoring during the calls to the Sakhalin port of Korsakov. Small ships can be berthed alongside. In the same time, the size of cruise vessels is constantly growing. Also, Sakhalin has got central position between Vladivostok and Kamchatka in cruise itineraries. That is why development of its infrastructure is key point, both for the increasing number of such cruises and to attract more foreign cruise passengers, particularly from Japan, thanks to geographical closeness. And now there is a project which is at the stage of project documentation development to build passenger pier and the terminal in the port of Korsakov in the frame of big project of this port reconstruction. Next point is the concept of Pacific Russia as cruise destination itineraries. Starting 2016 from promoting Vladivostok as a cruise destination and after reaching significant dynamics in our cruise traffic, we understand that we should suggest to cruise operators also new concept of the whole product, concept of new type of itineraries which can include several regions of Pacific Russia. We should review the prospects from the cruise operator's point of view. That is why in 2018, on our initiative, we, in cooperation with colleagues from Agencies of Tourism Development of Kamchatka and Sakhalin, developed the concept Pacific Russia as a unique destination for world cruise market. By that time, we understood what aspects should be analyzed and considered by cruise operators to make decisions of ships deployment. According to that, in the concept, we prepared and provided detailed information and photos on the following points for Vladivostok Sakhalin and Kamchatka. So this is port infrastructure, airport infrastructure, key attractions, food and unique goods to buy, tourism infrastructure like buses, guides, hotels, etc. Targeted source markets, because the main aspect is where we can source passengers, and variants of itineraries. This concept was presented to most of cruise companies that are active in Northeast Asia region, with a proposal to increase the number of cruises in the Pacific Russia region. During 2018-2019, the concept was presented at cruise industry conferences and exhibitions in Korea, China, Germany, and in other countries. Fourth point, expedition segment development. According to industry statistics, before 2020, expedition cruise segment was the most dynamic segment of cruise market regarding percentage of year-per-year growth. Despite of the powers and restrictions of world cruise market, in this and last year, expedition fleet keeps increasing. In this and next slide, there are photos of expedition class ships that were launched this year. Particularly, this ship, SH Minerva, as I know, during 2022-2023 season has got plans to make cruises in Pacific Russia region. This trend of increasing expedition fleet gives a base to attract more expedition-style cruises, not only to big ports in our region, but also to remote areas. And a very important point that compared to mid and big size cruise ships, expedition ships have no infrastructure constraints, which I mentioned above for big ships in our region. And the fifth part of my presentation is about cooperation between Japanese and Russian sides as an important base to speed up increasing of cruise traffic in Northwest Pacific. Here I want to say that since 2017-2018 we have got close cooperation with the main cruise ports of Honshu, West Coast, and also with Yokohama. A memorandum of understanding for establishing professional network between cruise ports of Sea of Japan or HSE and its adjoining sea was signed in 2018 with these ports which are on the slide. A memorandum of understanding with Yokohama is being signed. So as the ports of Hokkaido are very convenient ports for Japanese and also international passengers for cruises in Northwest Pacific, today we would like to propose to start active cooperation with the ports of Hokkaido, including Otaro, on joint promotion Northwest Pacific as a cruise region among cruise lines, with the target of increasing the number of cruises in the region. Hope colleagues will support our suggestion. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Valery. Next presentation will be a report on the outcome of the project by the team, including Valeria Galchenko, Anastasia Polomarchuk, Ekaterina Andreeva, Veshkurtseva, Alina Papirosova, and Valery Gordin from the Higher School of Economics University, St. Petersburg. Please, the screen is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, dear colleagues. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, dear organizers and participants of the seminar. We are really glad to take part in this seminar today and have the opportunity to present you the results of our pilot project and prospect studies on topic Arctic cruises through the eyes of tourist experience. And I would like to introduce you the research team The research was carried out by the team of the Laboratory of Economics of the University High School of Economics from St. Petersburg, and the head of the laboratory, Doctor of Economics Professor Valery Gordin, analysts Anastasia Polomarchuk and Valeria Galchenko, and research assistants of the laboratory, Ekaterina Andreeva, Alina Papirosova, and Anna Veshkurtseva. Today, me and my colleague Ekaterina and the whole team is here, but me and Ekaterina will briefly, because we have the time limits, briefly present you the results of our pilot project. So this pilot project is aimed at studying cruises to the Arctic through the eyes of the tourists, namely tourist reviews. Thanks to the reviews of tourists, we can see what is important for tourists on Arctic cruises and what makes the most impression for them. Also, we have the opportunity to compare whether the expectations of tourists and the reality coincide and find the field for the development. The approach used in our pilot study allows us to identify the trends in the behavior of tourists and their perception of Arctic cruises. The results could be very interesting and could be used to improve the quality of tourist services and refine the marketing strategy for the cruise companies.
So, talking about methodology, the main method that we used in our research is the method of analyzing digital traces. This method has a lot of advantages, and you can see them on the slide. The access to a large sample and different target groups. Also, this method gave us the opportunity to study the experience of tourists from different countries. Moreover, this method is quite objective since the actual tourist reviews are taken for sampling. In this case, there is no subjective assessment imposed. And this method can be supplemented in the future by other ways of collecting and analyzing information. We determined that tourist reviews can only be found on the websites of the companies that provide these services. And on the slide, you can see the criteria used for the selection. Popularity of the company, the geography of company's contingent of tourists, because it was important to get reviews from tourists from different countries, and the geography of Arctic destinations. We wanted to find the most popular of them. During the research, we found several types of the reviews: text reviews, video reviews, travel diaries, and microblogs. Text and video reviews were the majority. Our initial sample included 283 reviews, but it was uneven as different companies had different amount of reviews, so we randomly selected them, and our pilot study was done based on 54 reviews. Of course, we needed meaningful feedback, and out of these 283 reviews, we got only 61 of them that were meaningful. And one more interesting point, there is about 8 times fewer reviews on Russian sites rather than on foreign ones. As we have mentioned, we have found and analyzed more than 280 reviews for 3 selected companies. Our sample includes 20 reviews from Poseidon expeditions, 10 reviews from Vasta Discovery, and 253 from Ocean-Wide Cruise Company. And you can see the proportion of how tourists rated their cruises on the slide. And in our sample, we had different language groups, and the 30 reviews we had in Russian language, 84 reviews we had in German, and the majority, 169 reviews, were in English. We have divided the 54 reviews, our new sample, into quotes and coded them into categories. We have identified the main topics: shared memories, memories in general, service, such substantial points as entertainment program, attractions, animals, and weather, the assessment of teamwork, and the recommendations of tourists. Talking about general attitude of tourists towards cruise tourism in the Arctic, on the slide you can see the main statistics which we got from the analysis of the reviews. We applied the rating method and we have highlighted the topics that tourists write about in the first place. In 51% of cases, tourists started their reviews with the general memory of the trip, and in 12% with words about the work of the team. We also highlighted the most popular topics in the reviews, and in 71% tourists paid great attention to the theme of the work. This is the most popular topic, and the topic weather became the least mentioned, only in 21%. Next, we calculated the ratio of words about entertainment program to the total number of words in each review. On average, the share of words about the entertainment program equals to 28%, and using the same method, on average, the share of words about the team equals to 24%. Also, we analyzed our pilot study sample in the context of the companies. The first company is Vasta Discovery, and the organization of the service at this company was noted by tourists as good, but the main disadvantage was a long transfer and excessive adherence to the rules. According to the tourist review, the guide's inability to speak Russian didn't allow some tourists to get the essence of the material. Also, the advantages are teamwork on board and cleanliness of cabins. The next company that we have analyzed is Poseidon Expeditions, and according to the reviews, no disadvantages were found. Tourist reviews were mostly positive. There is no category that would be marked in each tour, but most often tourists wrote about the entertainment program of the tours and the service. In the topic team, the guests noted the professionalism and the involvement of the entire team. And the last company that we have analyzed during our pilot study is the Ocean Wide. Tourists wrote again about the professionalism of the team and the excellent interactions with the guests. The service on board remained at a high level, and among the disadvantages, some tourists mentioned weak variety of food. And tourists noted that the ship was no frills, but still comfortable. And one more meaningful, in our opinion, advantage is careful handling and respect to nature. Valeria, continue, please.
Thank you. So we have presented the main results of the pilot project, but the very main and very interesting part of the pilot project is to see what could be done in the future. So we would like to share with you our thoughts about the future further exploration, and it seems important to our research team to expand the selection of reviews, including covering different language groups and compare experiences between different tourists from different countries. Moreover, we would like to differentiate the directions of Arctic cruises, identify the most popular directions, including Pacific Ocean area. We think it will be very interesting to conduct marketing research for companies. And in this context, we would like to analyze what tourists pay attention to, depending on the ratings that tourists put on the cruises, as you could see in the slide with the proportion of the ratings. And we would like to study in more detail the relation of tourists to certain brand companies, like hashtags, tags by their digital traces, and to analyze the social networks and other marketing points. Sorry. It could be necessary to, and we think it will be necessary to analyze cruises to the Arctic through the eyes of employees and so the cruise teams, and with the help of the method of digital traces to study specific directions of cruise tours, for example, ecological ones. Also, it could be very interesting to identify the most pressing problems of cruises to the Arctic and to determine the prospects for the development of the cruise companies. So, but we are very open to your suggestions for the further exploration, and thank you for your attention. If you have some questions, we are ready to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We will have the questions at the end when we have a separate Q&A. And next, we have the pleasure to invite Vasily Grudev, Minister of Investment Policy, Sakhalin government, to give his speech. So, Vasily, the screen is yours.
Добрый вечер, уважаемые коллеги.
A very good day or good evening, dear colleagues.
Пожалуйста, видна ли моя презентация?
Can you see my presentation?
Нет, не видно.
No.
Экран.
Сейчас, секунду.
Just a second.
Так. Сейчас.
Can you see it now?
Видно?
Now we can. Yes, excellent, thank you.
Благодарю вас и приветствую.
Dear colleagues, thank you very much. I'm very happy to welcome you. Say good evening from the Sakhalin Island. It is quite a late evening in Sakhalin, and as you might guess from my introduction, I'm indeed responsible for investment policy development in the Sakhalin government. And tourism is certainly one of the priorities of development of our region, along with new types of development in the energy sector and our plans to achieve carbon neutrality. As you might know, the heritage of the Sakhalin region is based on the cultural diversity of many peoples and ethnic groups, and that relates not just to the Russian population. Actually, we happen to have the largest Korean diaspora in Russia. We also have ethnic minorities, but one of the most important partners and the biggest neighbor to our region is certainly Japan. And I'd like to use this opportunity to very warmly welcome our colleagues from Hokkaido. We do have close cooperation with them. And as you may know, the federal government of the Russian Federation and Japan have started a program for development of business and bilateral exchange in the Kuril Islands, and namely tourism is one of the priority areas in this program. Unfortunately, as it was already mentioned by many previous speakers, the consequences of the current pandemic has somewhat suspended this cooperation, but nonetheless, it is less so in the investment aspect of this cooperation. It still continues. So now I'd like to present to you an improvised map of our region. As I was saying before, during different centuries, it was visited and shaped in a way by the Dutch and French explorers. The southern part of the region was actively developing thanks to Japan. And we also have a very particular point of interest for the Far East. That is one of the places where around Russian writer Anton Chekhov was frequently visiting and also shaped in a way. So that is also an important milestone in terms of the Russian literature, and it has also shaped our region in a way. According to the statistics, tourists coming from all corners of the globe are also very much interested in this particular part of our heritage. At the same time, the unique nature and biological diversity of our region, beautiful landscape, is yet another element of the roadmap of any tourist project in our region. And since we are an island, an archipelago, I would say that maritime routes and cruises are also a very promising aspect of future development. At the same time, we are well aware of the fact that tourist flows would grow sometimes even faster than the tempos of investment in the region, and would therefore use the involuntary pause that we're going through now because of the pandemic in order to accelerate our capacities in terms of the berths we have. And Rosatom Corporation, and namely its department working with the development of new materials and new technologies, we also engaged foreign and international companies, and we're now conducting active cooperation with the Ministry of Transport of our region. We're interacting with private businesses in the Sakhalin region to facilitate reconstruction of the port infrastructure and increase our capacities here so that we would be able to host more vessels with the available technologies. And parallel to that, we have a program to reconstruct local airports in order to combine the maritime infrastructure with the aviation infrastructure. The network of local airlines and airline connections is developing rapidly. There are also subsidies for domestic flights, and they are available not just for the local population or just for Russian citizens, but also for international tourists. All those opportunities are readily available for foreign tourist companies who are preparing that type of tours. Today, I would like to largely focus on economy. I have to say that the territory of Sakhalin alone has 4 preferential regimes that include special economic zones. And as you can see it on the slide, the passenger flow of the Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk airport is recovering despite the pandemic. Steadily, it is recovering, although largely through the domestic tourism. Well, the situation is not that joyful in the Korsakov seaport, and it is also impacted by the fact that the ferry connection between Hokkaido and Sakhalin has been suspended, and we have received the response of our colleagues from Hokkaido just today. And I would like to add that currently there are no hurdles to revolve this interaction from the Sakhalin side, and we really hope that our Japanese colleagues will contribute to the fact that we bring it back. Actually, the situation with the pandemic in the Sakhalin Island is one of the most favorable. More than 70% of the population has been vaccinated. And like I said before, in terms of domestic tourism, we are quite attractive at the moment. As you can see, tourism is recovering quickly. Just to cite some comparison, I will tell you that all of the population of the Sakhalin region does not exceed 500,000 people. So the scale of tourists coming to the region is actually comparable with the amount of local population. So in this regard, the situation is somewhat similar to the size of Iceland or our neighbors in Kamchatka, and the proportion between local population and tourists that those regions demonstrate. In my personal opinion, all the seasons of the Sakhalin are good for tourist purposes. But of course, Summer season is a particular interest when maritime traffic in the Sea of Okhotsk is most favorable and most stable. The port of Kamchatka that was mentioned by the previous speakers, our colleagues from Vladivostok and Kamchatka, is coming to a stage of massive reconstruction. And I'd like to say that in the course of this reconstruction, there are no hurdles to development of maritime traffic, and we expect that it would go step by step and will not interfere with the tourist flow and parking of the passenger cruise ships, obviously when it will be available for them to arrive. As for the Sakhalin itself, and namely in the city of Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk, I would say that there is a whole number of sightseeing attractions, among others, that is the so-called Frog Mountain, and that is a heritage of Ainu people that was mentioned before. That was a place that was considered sacred by those people. And currently the people of the Sakhalin region are paying a lot of effort to make sure that we are very cautious and caring regarding those sites of interest and this cultural heritage. So we want to turn this place into an attraction site for mass tourism as well.
We conduct a lot of work in terms of infrastructural development to improve the infrastructure around this particular site. There's another result of the Russian-Japanese cooperation in Sakhalin, which is the local history museum. It is a true cultural center. The collection of this museum was founded at the Alexandrovsky Post. This is the traditional old Russian capital of Sakhalin. The museum was initiated back in the 19th century, and there were the famous researcher Pilsudski, a brother of a famous Polish politician, participated in the opening of this museum. So this is one of those examples of international cooperation. The main collection is now housed in the building that was built in 1937, and the design was made by a Japanese architect, Esio Kaizuki. We remember the name of this architect, and this museum is now getting ready for a remodeling. We are not planning to close the collection, but we are planning to remodel the building. So it is a very important research center. The research team of the museum is in close contact with their colleagues from the Hokkaido University. And I think this is a very good example of museum cooperation. From the point of view of investment potential, Sakhalin region has 4 large clusters. We have the mountain resort, we call it the Mountain Air. This ski resort has become quite known. We are building hotels there right now. A number of international hotel chains have come to Sakhalin, including some Korean brands. And I have to say that practically all the hotels are being built with the participation of Korean private capital or with the participation of South Korean hotel chains. There are 9 hotels that are being built at present. Soon some of them will be commissioned. According to the international ratings, our resort will not reach the Olympic standards soon, but in 5 to 7 years we expect it to be up to date. But at the same time, we have a lot of ski pistes that are suitable for different levels of skiers, and the Olympic team, the skiing team of Russia, uses the slopes for their trainings. I think that Japanese investors will find a lot of interesting sites here and around the mountain resort. Russian hoteliers are also quite actively involved in the investment projects. We know that the company that was very actively involved in the building of Sochi hotel sector is now working in Sakhalin. There's a project on the creation of eco-tourism as well as ski resorts. I'm not going to go into too many details here, but let me just explain a little bit more about the Buse Lagoon project. There's a unique location in the southeast of Sakhalin. It's very rich in aquaculture, and it's a very beautiful site. It attracts a lot of people with refined taste, and they are attracted not only by the landscape, but also by the fact that they can fish seafood themselves there. We have an economic free zone regime in this area, and we would like to invite both Russian and foreign investors. We would be very happy to see Japanese investors as well as Japanese tourists in this area. So please come to visit this area, but also if you have any economic interests there, we would be happy to see you there. It is a very good location. It's very well situated in terms of cruise lines tours and cruise lines routes. It's a very popular point of attraction for tourists. Hopefully that in the future we will have more infrastructural projects there, and there will be more opportunities opening up for tourism in this area. Maybe we will be able to build more 5-star hotels there as well. So this is all that I wanted to cover in my today's presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. This is all that I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Большое спасибо, Vasily.
Thank you very much, Vasily.
And next, it is my pleasure to invite Sergey Khvorostyanyy from Vasta Discovery LLC to make his remarks. Sergey, please, the screen is yours.
Hello, dear ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for great opportunity to participate in this very important event. Yesterday, I listened with great interest to the speeches of colleagues, and one more time came to the following conclusion. We have a unique natural environment in our region. However, despite the great interest from tourism industry, we cannot develop tourism due to lack of opportunities. There are no high-quality accommodation facilities. It is so difficult to reach some unique places, and the number of tourists should be limited just not to cause irreparable damage to the natural environment. And today, I would like to present you 3 Volcano Park, model case of sustainable tourism and integrated regional development. I think that creation of 3 volcano project seems to be very important for the responsible, sustainable development of tourism in Kamchatka. That is confirmed by mission of this project. We develop affordable, comfortable, safe, and responsible tourism in Kamchatka. According to the project, the Viluchinskaya, Mutnovsky, Gorely volcanoes, the Viluchinskaya Bay, and South Valley of geysers are combined into a park with very easy, accessible distance from the main points in Kamchatka. First of all, it's around 60 kilometers of Yelizavo Airport and 80 kilometers of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatka. According to the project, in these very interesting places would be constructed some facilities. First of all, Sovka Горячая Resort with geothermal hotels over 1,000 rooms and ski infrastructure facilities. Mutnovsky Volcano Geopark with tourist trials. Viluchinskaya Bay Marine Passenger Terminal. And at Viluchinsky Volcano would be constructed Panorama Tourist Complex, as well as the tourist camps and 4 glampings in this territory. Speaking about the success, why we think that definitely this project will be very successful, I think several things which should be announced. First of all, this is unique recreational assets. Second one, the great interest from tourism society and with international and Russian tourists. Third one, I think it's very important that this project is going to be developed, the very highly professional and effective team with experience of already creation of Rosa Hutor ski resort in Krasnaya Polyana in Sochi. This resort is the best resort of the Russian Federation for the last 8 years in accordance with World Ski Awards. As well as every year we host around 2 million guests for the year. And one more very important thing, this is a special condition for the business. You can see that this is a territory of advanced social and economic development. In this case, this for business, we create, not we, just government, create very specific and very useful condition like taxes, income tax, property tax, land tax, and unified social tax. Also, I would like to draw your kind attention for 2 important points of the project implementation. First of all, this is consolidation of efforts of the state and private investors. This is public-private partnership. We developed this project in the frame of the national project Tourism and Hospitality Industry, the national project of the Russian Federation. And according to this, the government invested more than $400 million for construction motor roads and engineering infrastructure. Another side, this is private investors. It's Interros Group of Vladimir Potanin and Mr. Bachin's Vasta Discovery Company. Invest more than $500 million in total for construction all tourist facility like accommodation, ski infrastructure, and some walking routes, glampings, etc. So it was one, but second one, I think also it's very important, the scientific approach in implementation. The 3 Volcano Park project fully supports and complies with the principle and goals of sustainable development. Corporate code, we call it Green Code. This is 18 groups of criteria covering all stages of the construction of tourism infrastructure, with the main aim minimizing its environmental impact and reduction of resource consumption while providing the guests with the conditions for a comfortable and safe stay. According to our colleagues, I would like to thank Mr. Valeryi Nagornyi and Georgy Yemelin for already paying attention for our project. And according to our colleagues, we already heard that the great potential for the cruise tourism. And definitely we are sure that implementation of the project will create a new unique location for cruise tourism in this area. According to the project, up to end of 2022, it would be finishing completion of design of marine passenger terminal at Vilyuchinskaya Bay, as well as all facility in this area. It's first of all 2 piers, 360 and 450 meters, small vessel marina, a bus terminal for 25 buses, as well as a car park for around 150 spaces, with another all comfortable and modern infrastructure. And from 2027, then construction should be completed. We are going to invite the first cruise ships and say welcome to all Russian and international guests. And also very interesting things here, we specially written possible opportunities like play on words to get your attention, because I think it's really unique opportunity to invite the international companies for cooperation. First of all, we would like to include the cruise port in Vilyuchinskaya Bay in the typical route of Russian as well as a foreign cruise company, and create this port one of the spots where I definitely should visit Kamchatka with their guests and connect Kamchatka with Japan and other countries. And one more very important thing, now we're creating investment laws to invite foreign companies, just which could be definitely the resident of territory of advanced social and economic development, and to create their facility, register them in ownership, and implement their programs. For example, for me, it would be so nice to have some ryokan in this area, and just to give the chance the Russian and international guests to feel some experience of omotenashi, the very well-known Japanese culture of hospitality. In this case, dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your kind attention, and welcome to a very unique place in Kamchatka Peninsula. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this intriguing presentation. And then, Alexey Limanzo, President of Association of Indigenous Peoples of North Sakhalin Region, representative of the Indigenous Minorities of the North in Sakhalin Regional Duma, will be our last speaker of this part. So there will be a Q&A soon, so please feel free to send your questions and comments through the chat. But before that, Alexey, please, the screen is yours.
Алексей Геннадьевич, вы нас слышите?
Alexey, can you hear us?
Алексей Геннадьевич?
Alexey.
Добрый день, коллеги. Прошу прощения.
Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. I apologize for the technical difficulty.
Добрый день.
So, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Do you think you can share your presentation with us now? Please share your screen.
Я приношу извинения, только прибыл сейчас, секундочку.
I apologize. I have just arrived, so please give me a second.
Презентацию можно будет воспользоваться вашей поддержкой, чтобы...
Can I ask you to help me with the presentation?
Yes, can you please? I'm sorry. Да, конечно, сейчас. Одну минуточку.
Yes, of course. Please give us a minute.
Алексей Геннадьевич, не забывайте, говорите нам, когда листать.
Alexey, please don't forget to tell us when to switch the slides.
Я представляю Сахалинскую область.
Ladies and gentlemen, I represent the Sakhalin region, one of the indigenous peoples, and I represent their interest in the Sakhalin Regional Duma, the local parliament. Next slide, please. The Sakhalin region is one of the backbone resource regions of Russia. It has an important political, military, and economic significance for the country. If you look at some of the economic indicators, the region occupies a leading position not only in the far east of Russia, but also across the country. Sakhalin's economy is the fourth in Russia in terms of the amount of products manufactured per person and in terms of direct foreign investment. The regional product is 20. For regional product, Sakhalin is number 28. In 2018, the GRP of Sakhalin region exceeded 1 trillion rubles. It amounted to 1.13 trillion rubles. The Sakhalin region economy is characterized by the high degree of sustainable economic ties with different countries. We supply almost 50% of fish to the world market, 100% of LNG, and all in all, we contribute to about 3% of all Russian exports. The key sectors of the Sakhalin region are fishing, oil and gas production, and coal mining. However, the share of tourism in the region's GRP is still less than 1%. Could you please go to the next slide? It is also obvious that the tourist potential of the region is not used to its full extent. And it is important to have more government intervention to support the development of tourism for Russian foreign citizens. This area has a lot of tourist resources, environmental, cultural, educational, sports, business, gastronomic, and others. We can develop all kinds of tourism here, and I believe that the development of tourism as a sector will increase revenues for local budgets. The government of the Sakhalin region has set out to make tourism one of the main priorities for the development of the region in the coming years. And one of the tasks that the government has set for itself is to ensure the tourist flow of up to 600,000 people per year by 2035. And a number of infrastructure and investment projects were put in place for that matter, and they were worth over 2.5 billion rubles. There's a special government program for the development of tourism in the Sakhalin region that was adopted for Sakhalin Island. Among the goals of the program are the construction, improvement, and reconstruction of tourism infrastructure facilities, the creation of accessible and comfortable tourist environments, the increase of domestic and inbound tourist flow to the Sakhalin region, the creation of conditions for the development of tourism and the provision of state support for that, support to boosting a positive image and visibility of the Sakhalin region in the tourism markets. We believe that the implementation of this government program will improve the quality of services in the field of tourism, and that it will complete the regulatory framework that helps to enhance the image of the Sakhalin region in Russia. One of the promising areas for tourism industry today is the so-called ethnic tourism. As of September 1st, 2019, we had over 4,000 representatives of indigenous minorities in Sakhalin region. According to the list of places of traditional residence and traditional activities, this list was approved by the government's order. This list includes a number of different urban districts, including Alexandrovsk-Sakhalinsky, Noglitsky, Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk. We have Niks, Nanay, Oroks, and Ivanks. All in total, the indigenous peoples account for 0.6% of the total population of the region. 100 ancestral households and communities of indigenous peoples have been registered in Sakhalin region. Their traditional economic activities include fishing, reindeer breeding, hunting, gathering, sled dog breeding, arts and crafts. The traditional environment, the traditional way of life and economic activities make up a unified complex that ensures self-identification. Could you please move on to the next slide? The traditional activities have their own characteristics. All the indigenous peoples have their own languages. They have different cultures. But we can see that the interest to such cultures is very high. Nivks is the oldest indigenous people here in Sakhalin. They fish and hunt along the lakes of and rivers of North Sakhalin. Mostly salmon. Men fish while women pick up berries and different herbs. Can you hear me? I apologize. There seemed to be some kind of interference. Thank you very much. Researchers are not sure about the roots of Nivku, and they still argue about their origins. And their language is unlike any other language. Researchers believe that it is an isolated language, a fragment of deep antiquity of the Far East. And there are different versions about the genetic links of the language, but they have not been proven yet. Traditional festivals are important in the life of Sakhalin indigenous minorities. Before the beginning of each fishing season, there are fishing festivals, usually taking place in June. There are hunting festivals. During this time, the elders and the fishermen make a ritual sacrifice to the spirit, the master of the sea. According to the local beliefs, the sea is inhabited by the master, and as well as the sea people, and they send the communities their main food, fish and sea animals. These rituals are performed to turn the sea spirits in favor of the local population. There are a number of different traditional rites that are performed in Naglitsky district. There are all kinds of such holidays, the traditional Nanai rites, for example, taking place in Poranyansk. There are ritual plates that are decorated with carvings. The elders put different roots and dried stalks of berries, tobacco. All of these are offered to the spirits, and people ask the spirits to let them catch a lot of fish to make sure that they can live without diseases, that children do not fall sick. The program of such events includes performances of national dance and art groups, exhibitions of decorative art, sporting events. Sport competitions are not characterized by strength, but by the centuries of hunting skills, the ability to handle deer and dogs. And the most popular kinds are deer racing and running with a dog, archery, also mauta throwing. It's like a lasso. We have all kinds of competitions. Archery, harpoon throwing, especially from a swinging board. There are all kinds of national sports. And young boys and girls, children in national costumes, perform dances, pantomimes. They use plots from folk tales, legends, and they try to reveal the spiritual wealth of their people.
Once
every 4 years, we hold the regional festival of Sakhalin Indigenous Minorities, and each of Sakhalin's districts admit teams to participate in the events. The festival program includes national sports, jumping over knots, sledges, triple jump, cross-country running, etc., etc. When traveling to northern Sakhalin, be sure to learn about the ethnographic museums and their efforts to preserve the culture of indigenous peoples and ethnocultural centers. The collections of the main repository of antiquities on the island, the Sakhalin Regional Local History Museum, attract the attention of all tourists coming to Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk. Next slide, please. The collection presents authentic items from the late 19th and early 20th century that testify to the existence of a distinctive traditional culture among the indigenous people of Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands. On the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples, the Sakhalin Regional Museum of Local Law hosts the regional festival of folk arts and crafts of the Sakhalin's indigenous minorities. It is called Living Traditions. The festival includes a fashion show of Sakhalin indigenous people's clothing, an art and crafts fair, masterclasses, games, and a concert. Sakhalin is currently working systematically to create the necessary conditions to engage and develop ethnic tourism, and the popularity of such ethnotourism has been growing in recent years among the guests and residents of the Sakhalin Oblast. In order to develop the tourist potential of Sakhalin, the Ministry of Tourism of Sakhalin implements an educational program to train tour guides, professional tour guides from the representatives of indigenous communities, and those would be applying the knowledge of history, culture, and traditions of their peoples. Combining the potential of Sakhalin's unique nature and culture with increased professionalism and trained cadre produces a significant effect on the development of ethnographic tourism and related services. The effectiveness will be high if these activities are carried out in close cooperation between the indigenous communities and tour operators. This will contribute to the improvement of ethno-tourism infrastructure, additional economic initiatives, and an increase in the flow of island tourists in general. Thank you very much. I am sorry. I hope that you did like my presentation. You heard my presentation.
Yes, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I think there were some changes of slides that we could not hear, but the presentation was excellent. Now we have time for questions and answers, and I will look for the chat, and there seem to be some questions. I will start. This goes for Vasily Grudev. What do you think are competitive advantages of Sakhalin and the nearby islands compared to the American side, the US and Canadian Pacific coastline tourist destinations, both from the tourist and investors' perspective? I guess this is also a good question to all of our speakers from Vladivostok, from Sakhalin, from Kamchatka, but I think Vasily has already replied.
Okay. Yes. С вашего позволения, я так понимаю, что Vasily...
With your permission, I understand that Vasily had to leave because he had another meeting in parallel. Perhaps I would ask the interpreters to read this into English so that all of them would be able to listen. About the competitive advantages. First, this is proximity to Japan, Korea, and China, who are the most promising sources of tourist flows. If you even equalize ourselves with the North American destinations, we are probably 3-4 times closer. Sakhalin and the islands have cultural Russian heritage, but those are not alien to Japanese and Koreans. Personal family relations, cuisine, and history are most often quite common. Third, for the Japanese tourists, they enjoy easy visa regimes, and for Korean tourists, the visa requirements have been lifted.
Marina, вас не слышно.
The
nature of Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands is unique, and the Japanese scientists know that quite well. Another advantage would be that all the tourist locations have some tourist potential, and all those locations are special economic zones, which makes them attractive for any foreign investors, especially for Japanese investors, because politically the cooperation with Japan is defined as
thank you so much. And
priority one.
We have questions from others in Sementsov.
But can we first ask, is there anybody else of our speakers who would like to comment on this question concerning competitive advantage when compared to Alaskan cruise market? So if somebody else would like to comment on this one, now it's a possibility. And if no comments at this moment, then I guess I will take another question from the chat. Thank you for interesting presentation regarding tourism initiatives in Sakhalin region. Is in Sakhalin about how many historical heritage, like Sacred Mountain of Sakhalin Ainu, among other indigenous heritage, and if any, how tourism relates to those heritage? So, question concerning Sakhalin Ainu cultural heritage.
Алексей Геннадьевич, может, вы ответите?
Alexey Gennadievich, maybe you would like to take that. Can I do that? Yeah.
Спасибо большое. Очень...
Thank you. Thank you, actually, for this important question for the indigenous communities that are still keeping that traditional way of life. The monuments and sites of culture, of their cultural heritage, it is all in the locations where they also use nature traditionally for their economic purposes. The cultural monuments indeed are the heritage of our peoples. All the locations where the indigenous communities live have a significance. There are some sacred lands there, and the lands where historically we communicated with the spirits, with our gods, and these are the monuments where you can travel and to see that as they were. They're not the real traditional monuments as modern people would think about, but the indigenous peoples have a different attitude and vision of their monuments, of their historical heritage, and the way they traditionally lived. So I would say that the very visit of guests who would like to share from the cultural heritage, for that you need somehow get yourself immersed into the life of the peoples and communities, see the rituals and see what is spiritual, what is the spiritual beginning of such communities. If I managed to explain that, thank you.
Marina Viktorovna.
Да, Борис Владимирович.
Marina, yes, Boris. I am sorry, I'm not a speaker, I'm not kind of like an active participant today, but maybe I can add a few words to what Alexey said. Yes, yes, please, Boris, go ahead. Colleagues, I wanted to continue what Alexey was saying about the uniqueness of even Sakhalin alone. I think that we can find very interesting locations in other places as well. Alexey mentioned about traditions which are probably thousands of years old. And in Sakhalin now we have a pilot project of new energy. The hydrogen cluster, which is being established in Sakhalin, it is actually looking forward. You can take a look at the scale of this effort. The hydrogen cluster in Sakhalin will be able to provide environmentally safe and clean energy for the sustainable development of this region. This cluster will also provide energy to Korea and Japan, to the neighboring regions, etc. And what we see today is as the development of this region, it is indeed for the future, and it is going in parallel with our deep history and the unique nature. I don't think that you can find that anywhere else in the world. This is the unique feature of Sakhalin, which may be an attraction to tourists as well. Thank you.
And yes, I think there's one more question in Russian, so Marina will help me here.
Вопрос одновременно.
Yes, the question is both from to both Vasily and Sergey. And the question is, thank you for your informative presentations. And my question is about the mountain skiing development project in the Kuril Islands. What would be the target audience of such a project? And do you think it is quite promising and feasible to implement such a mountain skiing resort there. And a comment from Vasily Grudev. The initiator of the project is Rosa Kuta in Sochi. They are now looking into this project, and the feedback will be provided publicly shortly. Maybe Sergey has something to comment on that. Colleagues, indeed, thank you very much, and we need to wait and see sometime to really make any announcements. And of course, our feedback would be based on a very careful study of all the aspects there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I can't see any new questions or
any other questions,
comments in the chat. Maybe one just arrived in Russia, but in the meantime, let me just make a short comment. I would like to, say that, Valeria and your whole research team focusing on Arctic routes through the eyes of tourists. I'd like to congratulate you for a really creative and interesting research setting. Some years ago, we were actually trying to do something similar in Japan, studying the thoughts and views of the Japanese passengers joining Arctic cruises. But our approach was a bit different. We tried to make a questionnaire for Japanese tourists and approach them through the travel agents. But it turned out to be relatively difficult. The number of Japanese tourists in the Arctic cruises was so small, and then became COVID-19, and basically all the operations stopped. But you have actually used this kind of naturally born data, that is, I think, really smart, so that you don't put any new pressure on these tourists to answer your questions or creating something for you, but you have found a way to utilize this kind of data that is born naturally. So that's something, a comment from my side.
Yeah,
and then there's this question in Russian, so Marina will help me here.
Вопрос от Михаила.
So the question is from Mikhail Balitsky about the from Sakhalin State University, as far as I understand. Thank you, Alexey, for the interesting presentation.
Вопрос, очевидно, к Алексею Геннадьевичу.
This is apparently the question to Alexey Limanzo. Do you plan to organize tours of, say, cultural and cuisine festivals through the local operators to promote such networks and relations among tourists? For example, through the organization of tours for bloggers from Japan and the Republic of Korea.
Вы сможете, Алексей Геннадьевич, ответить на это?
Alexey, can you take that?
Вас не слышно, вы...
We do not hear you. I think you are muted. Sorry for that. Indeed, thank you very much for the question. That is possible, of course, especially such culinary or cuisine tours and festivals. They more or less are part and parcel of our local festivals and rituals of the indigenous communities of Sakhalin. Those festivals that we are holding every year throughout the year. We might have a suggestion to people who are coming to visit us during festivals. We can offer them to try our national cuisine. And every time outside, our fishermen and our hunters and our berry collectors, they are cooking the traditional dishes, and they are offering the guests and participants in those festivals to try those dishes. And we may not have I would say any large-scale projects to promote our national cuisine. However, during all our festivals, local and also during our outreach programs abroad, where our people are involved, we would always include such a tasting procedure, such a tasting event for the guests. We are open to such cooperation, and we would be happy to promote that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, time is kind of running out. I was just to say that I was assuming that COVID-19 will come up as a challenge and as a problem. I was also assuming that the possible challenges that we have. I was somehow assuming that the lack of funding and investors would come up as a topic. But I was gladly surprised to hear so much about these investments that are ongoing, and apparently there's also international investment and investors involved in this region that we have talked. Discussion concerning the cooperation between tourism industry and infrastructure development, and then the NGOs and researchers interested in the environmental research. I think we will have to continue them later. Now, if there are no other questions or comments, if not, then I will close the Q&A session and we will move on.
Okay. And now it is our great pleasure to invite Managing Director of the Far East and Arctic Development Corporation, Roman Sementsov, to give his closing remarks. Roman, please. The screen and floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, hello everyone. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here and to participate in the seminar for the development of sustainable cruise industry in the Pacific Arctic. Yes, as Marina said, so my name is Roman Sementsov, and I work for Russian Far East and Arctic Development Corporation. And I want to say thank you very much to organizers, team of HSE University, and of course personally to Mr. Tanaka, Mr. Saunovara, and Ms. Lamaeva, because you did really a great job. It's very valuable today's event, and of course thank you to all the speakers and participants. And there is another pleasure to see many colleagues. We work from day to day on this seminar, and I think some ideas I will cover also in my presentation, so already covered by my colleagues, because we work together to develop this cruise business in our macro region. Look, first of all, in my presentation, I want to focus on the investment perspective of the topic we discussed today, because in order to develop something, we have to invest, and I know that you're already full of new information today, but I will try to be clear and concise, and today I want, in my presentation, cover key three topics. So first of all, I will give you key information about Russian Far East and Arctic Zone and special government support we provide to new investors.
I'm sorry, Roman. Will you be sharing your slides? Or...
Yes, yeah, just once in a minute. Yeah, sure. And after that, I will give you overview of tourism sector in the macro region, and after that, of course, I will cover the topics of Far East and Arctic cruise development. And as yesterday Mr. Tanaka promised, today I have to summarize all the outputs of the seminar. So my pleasure to complete this text. So in the final stage, so I will cover this. So let me share my screen. 1 moment. Look, and I think this is the only seminar I participated where we are totally in line with the timeline you provided in the program. It's amazing. So I will try to keep also to be in line. Just 1 moment. You can see it? Yeah. Okay, just 1 second. Look, on the slide you can see the management system of the Far East, of the Russian Far East. Our president defines development of Russian Far East and Arctic zone as a key priority for our country development, and special ministry and we as a corporation for Far East and Arctic development were created to manage this development of the region. And our key task is to attract new investors in the region. And today I want to say how we do this and what kind of government support we provide to new investors. Look, this is the map of the whole territory. You can see with the blue color is all territory which is covered by Russian Far East and Arctic zone. It is 55% of the whole territory of our country. Huge territory, 11 regions in the Russian Far East, 9 regions in the Arctic zone, and 11 million people living there. And it's full of natural resources. And natural beauty is unbelievable. We will cover it a little bit later. So we, as a corporation, just to be clear, we provide special support to new investors. So besides favorable tax regime, we provide project financing, we provide infrastructure with government support. And let's move to a more detailed way. On this map, you can see how all the special economic zones are covered with our territory. There are 3 types of special economic zone in our region, but the key idea is the same: to provide the best conditions to new investors to realize their projects. And you can see, or even today and yesterday, our investors, they said how important this support for realizing their projects. Yes, from the project financing perspectives, we provide 2 key programs. First one is managed by VEB, which is Veshkurtseva, the largest development institution bank in our country. The idea is to provide project financing with 2 to 5% rate, which is at least twice lower than average in the country. This program is usually managed by large projects, but we have another one which is covered, which cover the small and medium enterprises with average capex of $30 million. And you can see all the key commercial banks of Russia are involved in this program. What about infrastructure? This year, it was announced that we launched totally new project. It's called Far Eastern and Arctic Concession. The idea that our Ministry for Far East and Arctic Development is a key operator of this program. And next 3 years, we are going to attract about $7 million or 500 billion rubles in infrastructure development for key investment projects in the region. And we're happy to attract also international investors from Japan to use this new tool. And of course, we still provide particular support of different projects. Like, for example, you just heard 3 volcanoes. We have the same idea in the other projects where we have a direct support for different projects who are going to realize their investment projects in Arctic zone or Russian Far East. Look, this is interesting slide. You can see that today we have already more than 100 international projects, with foreign investors, participants. You can see Japan also on this graphic. About 10% of the international projects comes to Japan. And I know, and frankly speaking, I believe that we have to increase this number, and I hope this seminar also will influence this as well. And the total capex is more than $18 billion already, and you can see also the structure of the projects from the sectors or industries part of you. Yeah. Okay, this is I provided you the key information what we provide to new investors in the Russian Far East. And just to summarize, this is special territory in Russia where you have something really unbelievable number of government support in different types of this support to realize new projects in the region. Now let's move to the tourism sector overview. Just a few words about tourism, what we have in the region. You can see on the graphic here that tourism market is growing. So the traffic is growing. Of course, we have COVID time, which is a bad time for all the tourism sector, but still is growing. We have huge demand from Asia market. So about 170 million people are not living just 2 hours flight from the Russian Far East, who spends $275 billion abroad. And this is a market we can share together with Asia. Moreover, we have a lot of government support, as I provided already you before. But the key aspect is, of course, natural beauty. And you can see just even on this 4 examples of the regions in the Russian Far East, how beautiful is the nature. We have 6 UNESCO points. We have about 50 national parks. And so, look, this is the key asset we can provide and to investors, to tourists. And of course, the cruise development is must-have business in the Russian Far East. What about Arctic? Look, it's even more exotic sector in the tourism of our country. Only 1.2 million tourists visited the Arctic zone in 2019, before the COVID year. 90% of the whole traffic comes from Russian market, and we have a huge opportunity to increase the number of international tourists to this area. It is still expensive today, but it's also very unbelievable. So from nature point of view, you can see how beautiful this points in the Arctic zone. On this page, what I wanted to show you, look, it is very hard to develop strategic industry without government support. And besides support from federal government, from the whole territory of Arctic zone and Far East territory, what I provided you in the very beginning of my presentation, we have special federal support only for tourism sector. And you can see here for Tourism RF and Federal Agency of Tourism provide also financing of infrastructure facilities. They provide money for master plans development. They participate in investment projects as an investor. They provide grants to new projects, and still we have also another option to get a soft loan for hotels with only 3-5% annually, which is something unbelievable for Russian market. Let's move to the cruise tourism overview. What about cruise? Look, totally we have 340 ports and disembarkation points allowed to foreign cruise liners to visit Far East and Arctic zone. 207 of them located in the Russian Far East, and only 4 ports today they have an option to handle the large capacity cruise ships. What does it mean? Of course, we have already background for cruise business development, and we have infrastructure, but still we have to invest money in this infrastructure to provide all the necessary conditions for development of the tourism business in the region. Look, I know that my colleagues already mentioned some numbers today about number of cruises and cruise tourists, but my point of view here that we are still on the very beginning stage of the cruise business development. Still, cruises are not expensive today, and not everyone can afford cruises today, and we have to make it more cheaper. And I will tell you how we work on this from the government side of view. You can see also how many bowheads, whales we have, sea lions and birds in the region. This is also an asset we can provide to tourists and investors. Of course, when developing cruise business, we have to think about nature and the sustainable development, of course, as well, as we mentioned already today during the seminar. And now about few our initiatives. Look, what was the idea? For example, we work with Valeryi Nagornyi, we work with Vasily Grudev together on it. The thing is that this COVID situation, of course, influenced the cruise market a lot. And we have an opportunity to develop domestic tourism, and after that, has a huge potential to develop international tourism. And we already announced this idea to establish a national cruise company in the Russian Far East and Arctic zone to develop cruise business. And the idea is to have an operator, national operator, who will operate cruise vessels, build it on the Russian market, and with average size about 200-300 passengers per vessel, and to develop key roads in the Russian Far East and Arctic zone. And here is an example. For example, the first cruise road is a 10 days cruise from Vladivostok through Korsakov and Kuril Island to Kamchatka region. And you can see that the idea is to reduce the cost of this cruise twice as it did before. So the average day will be costed only $200 to $600 per day, which is, yes, as you know, twice cheaper than today. But in order to realize this idea, we have to think also about infrastructure. And what Vasily Grudev said today is very important to develop port infrastructure. And for example, Korsakov seaport is one of the key bottlenecks in this idea. And we work together with Sakhalin region to developing this infrastructure in Korsakov port. And we were very welcome to attract investors also from Japan to participate in this project and to develop know-how passenger terminal in the Sakhalin region in Korsakov seaport. Thank you very much for attendance. So, Marina, colleagues, this is just a short overview of from the federal government, how we look on this situation, how we support investors, how we support tourism business development, and how we support cruise business. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, so what I want to say, first of all, about the seminar, just a few words. So again, I would like to thank once again all the organizations for creating such valuable events, along with speakers and participants for both days, because it's very valuable event. And I want to highlight that we discuss this problems and topics of cruise business in the region with participants from scientific community, cruise business, national parks, development institution, and other organizations. It's very important to collect this 360-degree feedback, and it's very important to bring together all the stakeholders. And what I want to emphasize more today, after all this very fruitful 2 days, I want to emphasize that tourism industry is one of the key priority and drivers for the development of the Russian Far East and Arctic zone. And it's really important to focus on this topic. As I hope you understand it from my slides that we already have the great advantage to be successful here. Natural beauty, natural resources, and a huge variety of it in the region. And as you can see also that we have already a lot of existing smart, bright ideas on different stage of development, some already implemented, some on the stage of implementing. Some ideas we just heard today from the first time. And it's very important to keep them going. And you know that complexity of the tourism sector requires taking into account many diverse factors as ecology, economics, law, ethnography, and I think we covered all of them today, and we have to just move forward, keep all this thoughts together. And that's why I think it's very important also if our guests and participants will provide us a follow-up message with key ideas how to develop the sustainable cruises industry in the Pacific and Arctic zone. It will be very valuable, and I think if you send it to Hokkaido University, we will explore it in more detailed way again. And of course, we have to move forward, continue our dialogue to develop tourism practice. And I want also to announce that Hokkaido University and we as a corporation are going to sign an MOU document in the nearest time to achieve the combination of business and administrative resources on a solid scientific basis to develop tourism and cruise business in the region. Thank you very much again. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think there's a small announcement from Marina. Would you like to share the screen?
I'm going to do it at the end.
Okay. Oh, then let me go first in the meantime. So finally, thank you so much. It's again time to thank all the speakers, participants, our great interpreters, our staff, and obviously all the co-organizers making this event possible. And finally, I'd like to express my gratitude to Boris Mirnov from the Russian Far East and Arctic Development Corporation and Oleg Serbagov from Kamchatka Tourism Association for their significant contribution and help. So that is all from me. Thank you.
И небольшое объявление, но прежде чем его коснуться,
And a brief announcement. But before I do that, I would like to ask to thank Boris Vladimirovich. I don't know if Oleg Vladimirovich is with us here, but Roman, without you, we would not have been able to organize this webinar with this wide participation. I understand that our time is up, but we are planning to have a report created based on these 2 days of webinar. I don't have a specific link to the presentation that we are preparing for Monday, but I will send it to you later.
Report on the outcome of this 2-day seminar on Monday. So in case you're interested, and to provide an overview of our previous efforts and undertakings in this direction. So I will send the invitation, the link or registration link to the participants of this 2-day seminar. If you're interested, please feel free to join, and I think we'll have more follow-ups, right? You have?
Yeah, but I'm sure we will have, other events coming in the future where we will get together and share our views and ideas how to continue from here in a scientific cooperation, also in a cooperation that involves the industry, academia, government collaboration. But that's all for today. It has been a long day. I want to thank everybody and, say thanks and let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much. I hope we will see you soon.
Спасибо большое всем, Marina Viktorovna.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, Marina.
Thank you for the Sementsov song.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Спасибо.
Спасибо переводчикам огромное. Dear interpreters, we wouldn't have managed without you. Thank you so much. Запись будет. We'll share the video recording.